Welcome to NeuroAnimation's Grow Your Brain podcast, where stories of resilience, science, and second chances come to life. My name is Maddi Niebanck, and I'm a stroke survivor, creator, speaker, and disability advocate who will be your podcast host. Here, we'll hear stories from the people who have gone through NeuroAnimation's program, people who prove that the brain is capable of rewiring, adapting, and recovering beyond what anyone thought possible. From stroke and brain injury to cognitive decline and aging, these are the stories that will prove to you that the brain is capable of many things. I can't wait to share with you all of these incredible stories, but first, I want to take a moment to tell you a bit of my own journey with recovery, because I'm more than just your podcast host. I am living proof that the brain can change. 8 years ago, my life changed in an instant. I was 22. I had just graduated from college in May of 2017. Right after I graduated from college, I was super excited to begin the next chapter of my life, move up to Boston, and launch my career in technology sales. But before I could do that, I had to go through one small thing: brain surgery. Now, I know what you're all probably thinking. What the heck? And trust me, I was thinking the same thing too. But since I was 7 years old, I had suffered the most severe debilitating migraines, culminating in a migraine that lasted 24 days when I was 15 years old. Obviously, this was not normal. I went to the ER multiple times. I had to get lots of medications, none of which worked, and my neurologist eventually ordered an MRI brain scan. The brain scan revealed that I had a rare condition which is known as an arteriovenous malformation, or an AVM for short. An AVM is essentially an abnormal tangle of blood vessels in the brain that don't have capillaries, so the blood flow is extremely unregulated, and it's potentially very dangerous. So, knowing this, I did what any person would do and started exploring my options. I really didn't like this notion of having a ticking time bomb in my brain, so I started consulting with neurosurgeons, the majority of which told me, "Your AVM is so big, it is considered inoperable." And the smaller percentage of which told me, "Your AVM is so large, this is a serious threat and needs to be removed immediately." So, I was getting a lot of contrasting opinions and had to make a decision of what I was going to do. Ultimately, I realized I didn't like the notion of having a ticking time bomb in my brain, so I decided I was going to complete my education and go in for a scheduled brain surgery to remove this risk. So that's exactly what happened. I graduated from Georgetown University in May of 2017. 10 days after I walked down Healy front lawn to receive my diploma, I'm checking into the hospital for my scheduled brain surgery. I was told it should be easy. We go through some preoperative embolization and angiogram. I rest and recover and then have the surgery, recover all summer, and then I should be in a good position to move up to Boston to launch my career. But things don't always go as planned. And it certainly didn't go that way in my case. The preoperative procedure ended up causing a blood clot in my brain, which burst, causing me to have a massive stroke in the hospital and get rushed into an emergency surgery. The literal last thing I remember was bawling, crying to my mom as I was recovering from the pre-op procedure, saying this is the worst pain I've felt in my entire life. My mom immediately flagged down one of the nurses because I have a very high tolerance for pain. I never cry when I get these migraines, and I've had some pretty nasty ones in my day. And next thing you know, I'm passed out, I'm having a stroke, and rushed into an emergency surgery. The neurosurgeon comes rushing back, and he tells my parents the situation is grim. He doesn't think I'm going to make it. I've lost a lot of blood, but he's going to try his very best, and we'll see. If I happen to wake up by some miracle, we have no idea how I'm going to be, if I'll ever be able to walk, speak, do any of the things that I once taken for granted again. So my family was really freaking out. But thankfully, the neurosurgeon was able to stop the bleeding. He did remove the AVM, and I was placed into a medically induced coma. When I awoke, I was chagrined to discover that I was completely paralyzed on the left side of my body. Now, when I say completely paralyzed, I mean completely paralyzed. Everything from my left and dominant hand and arm, my left leg. I couldn't even sit up in a bed or a wheelchair on my own without collapsing. I lost all of the left side vision, basically all left side vision out of both of my eyes. So I had no peripheral left side vision, and I could barely speak or swallow. So in essence, I was starting all over again from square one. And this is kind of where my rehab journey began. Those of us who go through a stroke, we know it can be really tough. It's so disheartening, one, to have had something like this happen to you, especially at such a young age. All of my friends were moving to New York City and glamorous places and launching their careers, and I was stuck day in and day out doing my rehab, learning how to sit in a wheelchair, how to walk with a cane, move my arm just a fraction of an inch again. All of these things I had once taken for granted, I was now having to start and learn all over again. In the beginning, every victory felt microscopic. Lifting a finger, forming a word. These were challenging tasks that I had to relearn all over again. In 2017, after my stroke, I had to learn how to sit in a wheelchair, walk with a cane, and eventually graduate from the cane and learn how to manage my foot drop and walk with a brace. In those early days following the stroke, I spent a lot of time wanting to get back to the person I was. I honestly thought that one day I was just going to wake up and be back to normal and be back to the person I was. But I did quickly learn that I wasn't just going to wake up and be better. In order for me to regain a sense of who I was before, I was going to have to put in a lot of work. At first, every victory felt microscopic. Lifting a finger, forming a word. I wanted so desperately to get back to the person that I was before this injury. And it took some time, but eventually I came to realize that this journey was not about getting back to the person I was before. I was on a new path now, on a journey to something bigger and better. Now, as we're here recording this podcast, I'm a little less than 8.5 years out from my stroke. Those of you who have had a stroke, maybe you understand this concept of the plateau. I had been going through rehab intensively for years. The first few years of my recovery, I was going into physical, occupational, cognitive speech, what felt like nonstop. But when the pandemic came, I stopped going into therapy, and I haven't gone back into occupational and physical therapy since. I've gotten to a point now where I am able to live independently, work a full-time job, travel all over the world, and just do the craziest things regardless of the fact that I had a stroke. I don't let my disability define me. And that has been a key learning for me throughout this journey. But being in the chronic stage of stroke recovery and not having access to therapy has been tough for me. I was doing lots of exercises on my own, practicing opening doors, picking up small objects, things that I thought would help me along the path to recovery and getting back more mobility. When I discovered neuroanimation, I'll be honest, I myself was a little bit skeptical. I understood the concept, breakthrough innovative technologies that will help stroke survivors be able to regain functional movements by using their hand more in a video game setting. I felt like I knew how it could work, but I was still skeptical. I didn't think that it could work for me, being in the chronic stroke recovery stage and like 8 years out from my injury. Most doctors will tell us stroke survivors that you're not going to make any gains beyond the first 6 months, the first year out from your injury. But I'll be honest, I think that that's all BS. I know for a fact that you can recover beyond the first initial 6 months or a year of your injury. And I know that because I've gone through the NeuroAnimation program. And I'm very happy that I took that leap because I was able to see functional gains and improvements beyond what I think anyone thought was possible for me at this stage. I had the opportunity to go to NeuroAnimation, and I thought, what the heck? What if I literally got to lose? I have nothing to lose. Worst case, I'm go and it doesn't work and I am no worse off than I was before. But I'd kind of reached a point where I was a bit desperate. It's been 8 years since I had my stroke. I'm not going into therapy, and I still really wanted to be able to use my dominant left hand more than I had been in the past. And so, having thought it through like that, I decided that I was going to go. I like to think of myself as someone who has a very positive and forward-thinking mindset, and since I'm super passionate about helping the stroke and brain injury community, I thought, why don't I go to Ohio and give this thing a try to see if it's maybe something that could help other people like me be able to make gains. So I packed my bags and I went to Columbus, Ohio for 3 weeks. When I first got to the NeuroAnimation boot camp, I walked into the theater and I was amazed. It felt very futuristic. There were projective screens with amazing visuals about like all these undersea creatures. There's an octopus, a fish, and I was using my left affected hand to control these animals in the games. And as fun as the games that I was playing in the NeuroAnimation theater were, I still was a bit skeptical. I still thought, how is this really going to help me? I really wanted to get my fingers a lot looser. And as I started to use my arm to control the octopus, to control the fish, and battle sharks, my hand started to open up. I was literally amazed. Like, my hand that had not been able to do much of anything for the past 8 years was now starting to open. And I was able to control it. So for me, it started on the ulnar side with my pinky and my ring finger opening up just a little bit. But I get so encouraged by even just the smallest win like that. It was literally microscopic. And I thought, wow, if my hand is able to start opening and accomplish these things, I was able to pick up some items using my hand, activities I hadn't been able to do for years. If I can accomplish that, then there truly are no limits. There is no limit to what our brain can achieve, and this is proof that the brain can grow. I remember at the end of my first boot camp back in May, I would go in the morning and I would bring my cup of coffee. I would walk in with my cup of coffee into the NeuroAnimation Center every day. My coffee cup I have to hold in my right hand because I don't have enough control and stability in my left to hold it. So I would walk up to the front door, which is really heavy, by the way, with my cup of coffee. I'd have to set it down on the ground and then open the door with my right hand. And then one day, towards the end of that first session, I thought, you know what? In the spirit of trying new things, why don't I try to open this heavy-ass door with my left hand? And so that's exactly what I did. I walked up with my coffee cup in my right hand, and I swung my left hand onto the door, and I pulled it open. Thankfully for me, my grip strength had improved immeasurably, so I was able to open this heavy door with my left hand and then walk in with my coffee. And that was a huge turning point for me because I thought, this is a huge skill to be able to accomplish. And if I can do this after 8 years, like, I can literally do anything. I feel like one of the other cool things about going through the NeuroAnimation program is not only did I improve physically, but I improved cognitively as well. So when I came, there's this assessment that we do at NeuroAnimation called the Dana assessment. And when I started, my score was good by conventional standards, but because I'm a little bit crazy and stubborn and I really wanted to work hard and get as good as I could, I knew that I was gonna work really hard to improve my cognitive score. And my cognitive score ended up, by the end of that first round of the boot camp, it went up significantly, which meant that my processing speed had improved, my reaction time had improved as well. So in my case, the biggest improvements that I made while I was going through NeuroAnimation back in May were certainly physical. Being able to use my hand more, open up my fingers a little bit, it just made me very encouraged that I could continue along this path and make more progress, which is why I ultimately decided to come back for another round of boot camp just about a month ago in September. I was blown away to discover that not only had the gains I made back in May maintained, they actually had improved. I came back with a much better grip strength than I had before. On day one of my round of neuroanimation back in May, my grip strength in my left hand was like 4.6 pounds, I think. When I finished, it was 12.6. So it basically tripled my grip strength. And just for context and reference, in my unaffected right hand, my grip strength is only like 50 pounds. So it's not like I have that much to get up to anyways. But in September, on day one, my grip strength was 14.6 pounds. So it had improved like a lot. I was really, really pleased to know that not only had my gains stayed the same, I'd actually made some more in the time that I'd been away doing exercises, playing the VR game. It all adds up and it all helps to translate into real progress, which is amazing. When I came back for the second round of therapy in September, my hand continued to open more. The first time it was only my pinky and my ring finger that were opening a little bit. But in the second round of boot camp, my middle finger and my index finger were actually opening as well. So that was really encouraging and cool to see. The next thing I'll need to tackle is definitely my thumb. But, one thing I'm learning is that it's just one step at a time. We'll get there. The biggest and coolest thing that I was able to accomplish from this last round at NeuroAnimation was the pinch. Think about it. The pinch is like a super fine motor skill. It's really hard. And I had not been able to do a skill as fine as that since before my injury 8.5 years ago. When I finished, I was pinching a dice with my middle finger and thumb and picking it up and dropping it into a cup, and that was pretty cool. It was in the second round of boot camp that I feel like I really started to see more significant gains that mattered to me and impacted my life. It was as if I was turning the page on a new chapter in my stroke recovery journey, evolving beyond what anyone thought was possible. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. And that's what living proof means to me. Not a miracle, not perfection, but real measurable progress that translates into you achieving your goals. So each month, we'll bring you stories like this, people who have faced the literal unthinkable and who have come out ahead and managed to see significant brain growth thanks to neuroanimation. We'll explore what recovery can look like when science meets heart. Because the brain is not a fixed organ, it's a storyteller. I'm Maddi Niebanck, stroke survivor, author, creator, and proud graduate of NeuroAnimation, and I am living proof that neuroanimation can help you grow your brain.